Divine Rise, Blessed be. Divine Rise, Blessed be. Grand Rising. Good morning, because some of you guys need a killer that destroy some shit. I desire you to be the best. And the way to become the best is to be totally honest with yourself. Throughout the week, we've been getting into this realm of neutrality. God Hour podcast is streaming now. We got deep into neutrality, the nurturing and the birthing of the effects, trying to remain in the same stride, and understanding the inverting of our shadow and our light as we go into our shadow work. And it made me think about support versus our enabling avoidance or enabling neglect or enabling the ability to reject. And then it made me think about, that's what we're going to get into tonight. But it made me think about self-actualization. Self-actualization. Made me think about self-actualization and really realizing my routines, how I took care of things, how I did things, how I didn't do things, the way I would say things, how I would respond to things, based on versus reaction, self-actualization. A lot of times based on the necessity. The basis of our life, how we move, how we shift, what we're becoming. A lot of times we lose the sight of the circles, the routines, and the quality of existence. How you created that space, how you brought yourself into that space, what that space now means, the things that you're trying to tap into, what you're trying to manifest, what you're trying to bring into your space. All of these things are based in this realm of that self-actualization. I'm gonna paint with an example. My normal routine, I woke up today, and I was getting my tea ready. So when I got back, I would pour my tea. I was getting myself ready for the day, hoodie in the dryer so it's hot when I put it on before I go to the gym. And then I looked over at my workstation, one of my work desks. And I was just driven to organize my work desk. So I spent about 15 minutes organizing my workstation everywhere where all my stuff is and getting this stuff in order. And as I was doing it, I was thinking about the basis of my circle, my inner sanctum. A lot of times we don't realize that. I watched the video. This is where this thought stemmed from. I watched the video the other day. The Gary dude, he was like, and someone asked him about circles. He was like, do you still have some of the same people that you used to rock with, or like the same people that were around you before, are they still around you? He was like, yeah, because there's an aptitude of a need for them, but it may be on a different level. So it made me think about the frequency when I was in. It made me think about my circle. It made me think about so many things that I'm releasing, things that I'm letting go of, things that I'm releasing. And it made me really challenge my alliances. My old circle is no longer prominent in my growth. And this is one of the things that we have to look at in what's in our circles. That inner sanctum, that point, that dot, as Bobby Hemming would say, the black dot, that is you. The black dot is that factor of your self-actualization of what you're going to create, what you're bringing into that space with yourself. Your first lines of how your energy is being used. So when it comes to the self-actualization, when it comes to our shadow work, that acceptance aspect of accepting the things that I have done, because your healing work is not going to be based on a bias of saying, yo, this person did this to me, and they did this to me, and they did this to me, and then this happened, because it's not your job. I say this all the time. It's not your job to set anybody in the position to give you what you are expecting. You're still reacting. A lot of times when it comes to our healing, when it comes to this healing, when it comes to doing your shadow work, that healing aspect, we're still looking for, and we're going to get into that law deeper tonight. We're still looking at what we thought was support was actually enabling our avoidance. It was enabling our neglect. It was enabling our ability to reject. It was enabling a false sense of free will. It was enabling a false sense of free will. A lot of times I was in positions and I didn't realize that a lot of times when I was in these positions, I was the one that either created or co-created that space. This is going based on me forgetting, not looking at certain red flags that came up because I was still stuck in, it served me a purpose, and I was stuck in the good aspect. But as we're getting in, as you start tapping into understanding, you realizing the moral system or that moral code that you put into yourself, with yourself, it no longer exists. Those rules no longer exist. One good book, the Psychopath's Bible. Go get that. But like you start understanding that shit really didn't exist. It was only based on that sense of remaining outside of accepting my self-actualization. How I projected myself into that space. What that space meant for me. So a lot of times when we're removing these layers, it's easy because people that do it all the time. It's easy to be like, I'm cutting everybody off. It's easy. It's easy to say I'm cutting everybody off. But what was the reason for cutting them off? What was the reason? They came into your space for a reason. They came into your space for a reason. Until you understand that why and get into that because and get into that why, that will only repeat itself. That person, place, thing, idea, thought form is going to keep coming into your space. Because as I talked about earlier on Tuesday, we talked about you're in that realm of neutrality. That's that self-actualization. That's understanding what you self-actualize. That's understanding, I did this and I did this and I did this. I know that this happened to me, but I need to deal with it. It's time for me to really deal with it. Getting even more honest with yourself, I don't know how to deal with it. I got to come into a space where I get that's what you keep doing. So now you're coming into a space, it's only based on where you are at. So a lot of my first conversations that I was having with myself in my healing, when I actually started like really sitting down, it was in the same spaces that I was in. It was those friendships. It was those relationships that I needed to learn that lesson in. It was those friendships, those relationships, even though it was like an hour, it'd be like an hour, 2-3 hours worth of what was really BS or shit. 15 minutes in that there was 15 minutes of that conversation where it was something to an aptitude that I can take away from it. The key when you're coming into this self-actualization process in assessing your circles and assessing your space is going to be, when you take this information away, what are you doing with it? How are you applying it? Now that's the positive. That's the aspect. It can be something very negative in that space. Like, let's use an example, something simple on the lower end. You dating a dude and the dude says, you getting caught. Like, maybe you should start working out. Maybe you should start working out. Or you were the short and she was like, maybe you should look into you being broke. Or she calls you, nigga, I'm tired of taking care of you. Or the nigga say, I'm tired of trying to pick up your big ass. Why does it bother you? Self-actualization is why does it bother you? Not what they said, not what they did, because you're still stuck in good and bad in the moral sense. You still want to react based on a trauma. You're fighting. This is a way of, in real time, learning how not to shift into your negative axis, that negative side, that negative emotion, that negative aspect. It's to put yourself in the positive, to keep yourself in that positive. That way you learn how to respond. So many times we get so stuck on what is being said or how it's being said, but we're not taking that process of why is it bothering me? 9 times out of 10, it bothers you because it distorts everything that you built up to that point. This whole entire identity, you built up this whole space. You got in there, you were like, yeah, I'm body positivity and all of this nature and all this. Like, it's okay for me to be this way. I read some information and they were talking about the chicks that were bigger in this aspect. But you're not applying it. You're still only using it as that filter. You're using it as that shield, that blockage. Somebody gonna like it. Yeah, somebody is gonna like it. But you gotta understand the space that you're in. Is that space of that energy. The energy that you put into that space. You gotta remember, when you bring something into your space, what is it connected to? So you thinking about body positivity and all of that shit, and you coming from a space of the negative of fear of dying alone, the fear of dying alone, the fear of never having, the fear of nobody loving you, or the fear, but you got to go deeper into that aspect, go deeper into that wound. The fear of being, that rejection wound keeps coming up, the neglect wound, that avoidance wound, based on, that's the shit that's pulling that into your space. So in order for that to continue, in order for that to work, that projection to work, that wound has to stay open. That wound has to stay open. This is like when you think about a nigga got a chip on their shoulder, they're angry at the world because of the first thing that ever happened to them, that wound has to stay open. So now you start looking at your circle. Everybody in your circle, your inner circle should be the most knows. Your inner circle should be the most knows. They should be able to tell you no and give you the aptitude of a reason that you're able to assess and go forward. Your furthest circles outside of you, those are the ones that usually say yes. For a lot of us in that space, because we're not dealing with our healing processes, we're naturally, since we're in a negative state, before you come into your higher positive aspects, the higher self, you in that lower aspect of yourself. So you're in a negative space. That's why you keep drifting into these different, that's why you're in search of something. Negative is recessive. It receives. Yeah. Exactly. Oh shit, I got some of my. Exactly. Exactly. You make plans, like, you have to accept that everything that you're doing inside of your space, you're making the aptitude of the plan for it. You set that up. Whether you set it in that space, the energy that you're using to build that space has already been cultivated. It's already been put in place. Most of the things that come into that attraction zone for yourself, that's why when you start going through your healing process and you noticing niggas keep starting to fall off, is because now you're in that positive space of yourself. You're in that positive space. The things that used to support you, they're still positive. The things that used to support you, based in that emotional avoidance, it's still positive. It just no longer serves you. You're not going to switch it to the negative side, because in the negative aspect of your polarity, you're now learning how to repel. You're repelling from that because you're going into the negative aspect to serve yourself. A lot of times we get into these spaces where ourselves be like, but because you still got that outdated plan. You still got the outdated plan. You still got the outdated way that you were seeing things. And now that layer's being disposed and you're still trying to act that way. And now you're still trying to move forward. Remember, you're a damn scientist. You down here learning and figuring shit out. Your old alliances are only based in that current. Everything that you're tapping into is going to be based in potential energy, that potential aspect. What is your potential? What is the potential? We have to get on it. Like the first conversation that you have with yourself is, what is my true potential? What is my purpose? What do I need to work on? What do I need to assess? Say that to yourself. And I can guarantee you in the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, in the next couple of months, through a cycle, everybody's going to come into your space. Is going to show you exactly what you need to see. Exactly what you need to be working on. Exactly what you need to be facing. Exactly what you need to be dealing with. Because everybody around you is based in that, what you call it? Yeah, they're not separate. They're not separate. The tree of knowledge is the tree of knowledge is the Kabbalah, is the tree of life is the Kabbalah. That's the projection. That's the good and evil aspect of the projection. The quilloth, or the tree behind it, or the quilloth behind it, that's the tree of knowledge. That's the knowledge of how all of these things are projected. That's why when you get into the aspects of your experiences, your projections, and you're experiencing yourself, so you're learning of the experiences of yourself. So now you're looking in this space for yourself, like, why do I? Sometimes it's time for your ass to sit down. Being honest, simple, and plain. Sometimes it's time for your ass to sit down. Sometimes you're trying to look for moves, and everything is leading you back to that same space. Whether it be, oh my God, you got evicted again. Whether it be you got evicted, you lost your job, you lost your car, the relationship is trash, friendships is at an all-in, your kids is mad at you, your mother's mad at you. All of that's making your ass sit the fuck down. Self-actualization. You created this space. Sometimes it's time for you to sit your ass down. Sometimes you're going to be forced into a position to sit your ass down. It's going to expose you to those wounds. That avoidance, you keep avoiding it. You avoid your space, but you keep telling yourself that you want a better space. You have to assess this space first. You got to assess your space first. Your first space is your opportunity. So as I said yesterday, if you're not taking care of the small if you're too big, that means you've blown yourself up in this identity that is too big to sit down and assess your space, the small things within your space that created that big ass, that space, then you're going to be too small for the big thing. You're going to be too small. You're going to be too small for that next shift, that next alignment, what you're coming into. You ain't going to be able to maintain it. A lot of times we get our self-care confused with maintenance. Self-care versus maintenance. Self-care is the in-depth aspect of, if I put a face, I don't have to put a mask on, my face is beautiful. But, and let's say I wanted to put on a mud mask. I put on a mud mask, put on my mud mask. Ooh. What am I doing? What am I doing when I put the mud mask on? What am I thinking about? What thoughts am I thinking about? What am I journaling? What am I putting into that space as I'm doing it? It does me no good to put a mud mask on if my living room, the space where I'm doing it at doesn't match that frequency, doesn't match that space. If the energy in that space doesn't match, because all I'm doing is opening myself up for more of the same. All I'm doing is opening myself up for more of the same. This is where we get stuck in becoming vulnerable and not understanding what vulnerability is. It's being honest with myself first. The more honest that I am with myself, the more that I challenge myself, the more I naturally crack, the more that shell naturally cracks open and I become vulnerable. That means I need to face these things that are inside of this space. That means I need to start dealing with these things. That means I need to start getting rid of the old definitions. A lot of times we get stuck in the old definitions of, I can do it all by myself. Every time I open up, people always going to use it against me. We get stuck in these old narratives with ourselves. We get stuck in these old narratives. It's time to address those old narratives. Why, when that narrative that you gave yourself, or that identity that you gave yourself, why, when it gets challenged, why does it bother you? What wound is it opening up? What thought is it opening up? And then we're going to go into that aspect of that support. A lot of times we hold on to these identities or these wounds or these ideals, these narratives. I'm independent, I'm this, I'm that. I'm a real, all the way up to the new age aspects, even in the new age conscious aspect. I'm aware, I'm woke, just to keep hiding away from our space. Just to find what we believe is support, but is really enabling our avoidance, enabling our separation, enabling us to keep using the same behaviors. It's time to assess and realize and self-actualize your circle, that circle of agreements. I noticed with myself, when I changed and started investing in the healing process with myself, my appetite changed. It wasn't my appetite or my aptitude for what I was accepting changed. It wasn't so much the quantities of what I was taking in, it was the quality. That helped me understand. I was like, oh, I was taking in more. I see why I was absorbing that. I see why I was doing that. I see why I was putting myself in that position. I see why I kept saying, I guess, because most of the shit that we get into, we feel like we deserve it. We feel like we deserve it. All in that correspondence. We feel like we deserve the shit. Because we're still stuck in that instinct of that struggle. But I wanted to put that out. Tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the God Hour Show, we're gonna get deeper into this topic. 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're gonna get into support versus emotional avoidance. The emotional avoidance or the enabling avoidance. A lot of times we're looking at ourselves and we're wondering why people don't support us. We're wondering why people don't support us. When in fact they can't support you because they were only meant for emotional avoidance. When you think about the things that you're healing, and you only can see this from the aspect of you healing yourself. When we're going through our healing work and we're starting to assess and we're starting to understand our shame, insecurities, doubts, and understanding that original seat that it came from, that means your mom was acting out through shame. So her shame became your insecurity. Or your father was acting out through pain, so his pain became your anger, and we start going through that process, and then you're wondering why they can't support you. You have to understand that they build a life based off emotional avoidance. You're building a life off true support of the aptitudes of your true self. You're going to be supporting them. You're going to be the example that shows support to them. It's their decision, and it's going to be on them to walk into that space, not you. So we're going to get deep into that tonight. And then tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the link is the video, the lecture is up now. We're going to get into the Badlands. We're going to get into this aspect of understanding the process of the reason that we get stuck in this space is because we have suspended disbelief. We have suspended disbelief. We like to keep things in a certain space and we like to keep things the way they are, and so we can keep just yelling at the wall. So we're going to get into that aspect, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Gotta Go Alchemist YouTube channel. Y'all tune into that. That link's up now. I'm going to share it in a little bit. But I want you to be the best. I desire you to be the best. The way to become the best is to be honest with yourself. I mean, honest with yourself to a point. Exactly. Yes. That is exactly what it means by support. But I want y'all to be the best. I desire y'all to be the best. Share if you're resonating and you're like, you know what? It's time for me to have that sit down. It's time for me to have that sit down. That's what I'm here for. Hit me up in the inbox. If you're on IG, because I'm doing this video, dual video. If you're on IG, hit me up at Papa_Lucy666, or hit me in the inbox. And let's get that conversation started. I desire you to be the best. I want you to be the fucking best. The way to become the fucking best is to become honest with yourself to a point to where you are breaking all the old paradigms. And we're not just, the old paradigm is how you synthesize yourself into that paradigm. How you accepted that paradigm, basically, as Johnny Mac there said, whoring yourselves out to these people that are only based on your old patterns. You can't support your old patterns. You can't expect support from your old patterns. That's like you having a pair of fucking shoes that you know got holes in the bottom. You expecting the same support when you first bought them. But we don't get deep into that tonight. That's some shit I gotta write up. But I love you. We love us. Ashe.